Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this Altitude product session called Understanding the Revolutionary Potential of a SaaSOps Platform. I'll be your host today. My name is Michael Marks, and I'm the Director of Product Management here at BetterCloud. Today, we're going to talk about what is SaaSOps and why do you need to know what SaaSOps is. Then we'll do an overview of the BetterCloud platform and talk about how BetterCloud is helping solve the SaaSOps problems of the world. And then lastly, we're going to dive into some very specific SaaSOps use cases so that you can get a better understanding of real-world examples of what SaaSOps is and means to you. Why don't we just go ahead and dive straight in with what is SaaSOps and why is it needed? SaaS is the new way that work gets done. We've seen this digital transformation occurring lately, and it's no surprise as to why. We have all of these fantastic applications coming to the market that solve very specific niche problems, and they do it better than anyone else. It's being able to focus and have an application that's dedicated to solving specific business problems and addressing business needs. So we see this explosion of SaaS applications as we look just over the past 5 years. The average number of SaaS applications being deployed per organization is over 10x. That's a huge increase in just 5 years, and we continue to see that trend increasing at an exponential rate, especially as companies are evaluating their digital transformations. The IT teams that are tasked with managing and securing these applications want to make sure that they're enabling their businesses to adopt whatever application and whatever tools that they need in order to get the best possible outcome and have the best user experience. It's no longer about IT managing one monolithic application that solves the business needs, and it's not about IT going off and developing these custom applications. It's enabling every single business unit within your organization to use and adopt all of the applications that they want, to begin integrating those applications together to create streamless workflows, and ensuring that employees have the best of the applications at their fingertips. While this is what the IT teams want, getting there is a very different story, because as the explosion of SaaS is entering everyone's ecosystem, the number of employees or resources of IT professionals available to manage and secure those SaaS applications is dwindling, especially as a percent of the overall organization. So as we see an exponential increase in the number of SaaS apps that IT manages tasked to handle, we're seeing the same type of exponential decrease in terms of investment into IT to be able to support this vision and being able to support digital transformations and supporting end users essentially having a great user experience with all of the tools that they want to use. This new shift, this new dynamic is creating many different challenges. You got very large numbers here on the screen. We'll walk through each of them to kind of better illustrate what they represent. But essentially, there's a new lack of visibility in app usage. Because SaaS applications are so easy to purchase and so easy to install, which there really isn't an installation most of the times, there's a huge lack of visibility into the SaaS applications that are being adopted. And because of that, there is potential spend waste when you have multiple different departments that are buying specific point solutions. Let's say something like project management software. There's a significant duplication of efforts that are going on, where there could be centralization and taking advantage of discounts of broader types of license tranches. Instead, you have every single business unit adopting these point solutions that may be either overlapping and be the same exact product, or even competitive products in the same environment. That lack of visibility leads to very slow manual management, because when an employee leaves an organization, you either have to give the responsibility to each admin as the business unit owner who purchased the application, or they're going to expect IT to do it. Now IT has to log into all these different applications that the business has signed up for to effectively offboard a user. What we've seen from some of our customers before they implement a SaaSOps platform is that it takes up to 9 hours to effectively offboard a user. And that's just far too much time, and it's too error prone to potentially miss a step or miss an application or not transfer someone's files over in one application but doing it in another. So not only is it slow, the manual nature of it interjects a whole area of potential errors and misses, which of course, if you're in a tightly regulated environment, your auditors are certainly not going to love. Lastly, let's talk about the security components of this. We've found through our own research that 50% of data breaches are caused by a current employee or contractor. As the explosion of SaaS applications continues to evolve, these current employees and contractors are getting access to your data in different ways. As applications are integrating with each other and the data is flowing between all of these applications, it's getting very, very difficult for you to understand where your sensitive data is. So we want to make sure that we try to mitigate those security risks with the fact that there is more data getting exposed in more areas to more people. We've seen this type of pattern occur before. Way back when if I keep using the term explosion, but there certainly was an explosion in the whole BYOB motion, where people started bringing their own smart devices, even some bringing in their own laptops to be able to access the data and systems and tools within organizations. That brought to life a whole new market and a whole new area that IT professionals needed to embrace, which was called unified endpoint management. And now that's commonplace. Every major department that allows BYOB has some sort of way to effectively have the visibility, management, and security of those devices. When we first saw SaaS applications starting to adopt, that also saw an inflection point for identity as a service. All of your end users needed usernames and passwords to access these types of applications. And we needed to come up with a whole new market or a whole new solution around trying to get visibility, management, and security of those identities. Now is the time for a whole nother category. And we're seeing the same pattern occur again. When we have this mass adoption of SaaS applications, there's a new area that's required to make sure that we get the right visibility, management, and security of the SaaS applications themselves. That's where I would like to introduce you to SaaSOps. SaaSOps is a short for SaaS operations. And really what you're seeing on the screen here is the framework that BetterCloud has created and pioneered to be able to explain the different use cases that are underpinning the solid foundation you see at the bottom around the SaaS transformation. So let's start with that foundation, because that's critically important before you can have these different pillars sit on top of this foundation. The org structure, roles, and skills that are required to be able to effectively manage all of the SaaS applications that are coming into your environment at scale is a whole different beast than what your current IT employees are doing today. You also need to train your end users and teach them the new motion and the new expectations and the new services that you're going to be able to provide to them through this SaaSOps framework. And you also need to make sure you understand how you can best support them and whatever their needs are. Lastly is change management, which honestly we could do a whole other segment about the change management of digital transformation and a lot of SaaS applications that are coming in. But effectively, you want to make sure that people understand the difference of how you operated in the past when you were offering your IT services for on-premise applications or what you were doing before, to the fact that you're now managing this whole new SaaSOps platform. Let's talk really quickly over the three different use case driven pillars that you see here for SaaSOps as well. The first is SaaS discovery. And what we talked about before about the risk of not having the visibility of the applications that are being used today, how they're being used, not only within just the users that have them, but across the entire organization to make sure you understand potential overlap or duplication of those applications is critically important. The next pillar here is called SaaS management. Usually that defaults to talking about user lifecycle management and making sure that employees have access to all of the SaaS applications that they need, but it goes a step further than that. And we're going to talk in more detail about user lifecycle management in just a moment. But the difference between user lifecycle management and identity and access is that user lifecycle management is about giving people access to the things that they need within the application. It's not about giving someone access to Slack. It's about giving someone access to Slack and all of the channels that they need access to, and setting them up with the right level of access within each of the applications that they may need to do their job effectively starting day one. There's also use cases around application configuration and making sure that the settings of those applications are carefully being monitored and only change when they need to, and that all those changes don't introduce potential security risks or things that go against company policy. The last pillar that we'll talk about today is SaaS security. This plays into a few different areas. We talked about data exposure, so let's focus on file security here for just a second. We've seen quite a few different key players enter the market around content providing, like Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, OneDrive, SharePoint, all of these different collaboration tools that allow people to store files in the cloud. These SaaS applications make life so much easier. I'm sure anyone who has tried to edit a file with multiple people at the same time certainly love the fact that the collaboration, ease of use, and effectiveness of these tools are just incredible to have. But it does introduce a new area of security of, are files being overshared? Are these files available publicly or even available via search engines? Of those files that are shared externally, which ones contain sensitive information, like social security numbers, credit cards, or other types of sensitive data that you may not want exposed as publicly as what they are? SaaS security is also more than just file security. We also talk about least privileged access and monitoring who has administrative rights on those types of applications, and making sure that you take corrective action if admins are being added when they shouldn't. Those are some high-level examples, and we're going to go deep into quite a few of these just to give you some real-life examples as well. So let's give an overview of the BetterCloud platform so you can see what this really looks like. The way that BetterCloud is helping to address these specific SaaSOps framework pillars is it all starts with the middle there. It all starts with the integrations. All of the applications that are key to you and your end users need to be tightly coupled, and so that you have the full range and the full ability to effectively manage and secure them. So there's no point of having a SaaSOps platform if it can't integrate with the SaaS applications that your company needs and that you need to effectively manage and secure. But once we have these integrations tied in, we are able to pull in a whole host of information and wrap this around our patented data graph to provide some really great operational intelligence. And what I mean by that is, it's one thing to know about who has access to certain things within an application, but getting that broader picture and connecting the dots between users and files and devices and different data and messages, all having the complete picture of how all of these applications interact with each other allows us to have a lot more information about any individual component of a SaaS application. Once we have that operational intelligence, that's really where the fun part gets in, and we start talking about the capabilities of what can we do with the information and the data that we're able to process and understand. That's where things like automation come into play. Things like automated workflows, so that onboarding or offboarding happens automatically when a user is added to your HR system. Or that file security example, anytime the sharing permissions change on a file, automatically notifying security if it contains a social security number or other sensitive data. There's all sorts of really fun automations that our customers have used, and we'll dive into a couple of those when we talk about use cases. Another great example of a capability would be our search and reporting capabilities, which talk about how you can not only go search for the information that you're looking for across all of your SaaS applications, but we can actually highlight things to you and bring you awareness of certain elements that you need to know about. We've bundled these types of capabilities under those different product names. That's called BetterCloud Secure, and BetterCloud Manage. And as you can see, those map directly to the SaaSOps framework as well. Certainly no coincidence there. Let's dive into some of these key use cases so that we can get a little bit more tangible real life examples. The first one that I want to talk about is the manage component. And this is all about saving time by automating those manual tasks that you're currently taking on. And the reason for automation is multiple fold, but really what we want to do is get you out of doing tasks that can be automated so you can focus on more strategic work. We want to reduce the type of errors that are occurring or any sort of misses or gotchas or someone being on vacation and forgetting to turn whatever knob they needed to. Ultimately, automation can help you provide a better end user experience for your entire company. When companies adopt BetterCloud, for example, we see a 91% decrease in the amount of time it takes to perform onboarding, offboarding, or different types of user lifecycle management. And what you can see here on the screen is that you can get really, really granular with these types of workflows. So you're able to adopt the SaaSOps best practices, but still maintain some sort of flexibility to make sure that you're automating the way that you need to for your business and your needs. But again, let's focus on the fact that our end goal here is to automate as much as possible while providing the best end user experience possible. User lifecycle management works very similar to the previous screenshot, is trying to automate as much as possible. And again, I want to differentiate. This isn't your typical provisioning, deprovisioning story. We want to talk about all of the things you should be doing that you could potentially not be doing today. Onboarding is not about giving people access to an application. And offboarding is not about just removing someone from an application. Let's take a look at what we've got here on the screen in terms of offboarding. If something happens and let's say you're using G Suite and a user gets moved to an offboarding OU, you want to make sure that your groups are constantly being managed correctly and clean. So let's remove that user from all of the groups. Let's put a time period where all of those emails that the person's going to continue to get forwarded to their manager or peers or some sort of other group to make sure that we're not missing critical emails or communications that could be delayed if we're not properly setting that person up. Let's transfer all of that offboarded users' files to their manager or to whoever their backfill is to make sure that we're not losing data or having orphaned data existing within our Google Drive. And let's remove that person from any Slack channels too, so that we're not having the groups or the Slack channels be contain orphaned users. We can then do all sorts of things and spin off and notify the manager that everything's under control and IT has got your back. No worries, everything's being taken care of. And then finally, you can delete the licenses, which will make sure that you're able to save money by not spending licenses or having increased user counts when someone is actually leaving your organization. So user lifecycle management is key for us because we notice that a lot of people are doing onboarding or offboarding as far as that first step of removing someone's account. But all of these additional steps is really what makes the SaaSOps use case of user lifecycle management so much more valuable. Another great example of a SaaSOps use case under Manage is having the visibility and auditability across all different SaaS applications. What you see here on your screen is an example of a dashboard that we call User 360. And what it does is it shows you all of the most important elements of a specific user and across all of the different SaaS applications that they have. Again, this is a great way that we're demonstrating that patented data graph that I talked about before and able to provide you some fantastic operational intelligence. So this one centralized view gives you the ability to see a specific user and all of the user accounts that they have in different applications, the files that they have and the different settings that you can see on the screen, the groups that they are a part of, the settings that they might have on their accounts, and of course the audit log of the things that they're doing within these SaaS applications. Another great example of application configurations use case is understanding when things change in an application and automating the remediation of it. app and user config changes can vary depending on what you want to be monitoring. Some people don't want to monitor every little thing. Others want to make sure that nothing gets by them, and they're monitoring every possible thing and automating the remediation as much as possible. So one prime example would be things like multi-factor authentication status changes. If someone has access within an identity provider and they somehow are able to disable their two-factor authentication, most companies would say that's not best practice and goes against policy. If that's a risky setting change, why don't we go ahead and automate the remediation by undoing that change and putting that, requiring that two-factor authentication back on? That's just one example of the over 200 different alerts that are available within BetterCloud, and just one of the over 800 actions that you can automatically remediate. There's a lot of different fun examples that we could dive into, including public channels being created or new admins being added, and understanding whether those are types of risky things. And that provides you that flexibility to make sure that you're automating for what your needs are and what your company policy is. Another great example for manage is spend optimization. Spend optimization really boils down to making sure that you don't pay for anything that you're not using. So when we talk about a user that's not using an application, you need that visibility and auditability, which refers back to that old use case, making sure that a user is using the license that you're paying for in a meaningful way. So let's take this example on Dropbox as an example. If someone hasn't logged into Dropbox for over 45 days, it's probably an opportunity to either decrease their license or to get rid of it entirely. So this is a prime example of setting up an alert and creating a workflow to automatically try to recoup those license back, so you're only paying for exactly what you need and what you're using as an organization. This is a fantastic way for IT to not only provide great end user experiences, but to actually have a positive ROI on the services that you're providing. Let's take a quick detour and start talking about BetterCloud Secure and some of the use cases that we can help solve there. The first one is talking about reducing your risk over all of your SaaS applications. Again, like we talked about before, we've seen a significant amount of security risks existing within people's access to specific data. And we want to do whatever we can to remediate that by paying attention to the data that's available within your SaaS applications. We've noticed that once BetterCloud customers become customers and start implementing Secure, we see a 50% reduction in security exposure for documents and accounts. What that really boils down to is that we can surface a whole lot of information about the exposure of different files and whether they contain sensitive information and who those files are being shared with. And we're going to do a deep dive into that here in just a second. So our first use case for the secure pillar is about insider threat protection. This is all about identifying changes in suspicious behaviors and things that you want to take automatic remediation on. So for example, if someone were to set up an email forwarding rule, potentially to their own private Gmail account, maybe they even do something a little bit more malicious and start automatically forwarding things to a specific competitor. We want to be able to capture that type of information and take automatic remediation so that we're minimizing the amount of risk there. So in this example, we see that we've got email forwarding enabled. When that status changes, we can be alerted to that type of suspicious behavior and kick off a workflow to automatically remediate it. And what's great about this is we're taking remediation steps that span across multiple SaaS applications. So even though the alert occurred within the Google G Suite, for example, on this screen, we're taking remediation actions not only in G Suite, but also in Slack. We could also open up a ticket within your ServiceNow or Jira Service Desk or other ITSM provider to kick off an investigation for your security team. Or we could even step up authentication in their one login multi-factor authentication status there. The ability to take on that remediation that can span multiple applications is really key. What we found is that the average number of users that have email forwarding enabled in any given customer account is over 80. It's 83 different users. It's time for you to examine whether that's a policy you're willing to accept and start investigating whether that's something you should potentially look at remediating. And a SaaSOps platform is a great way to help you get there. One key example that I've brought over time and time again is file security. And this is all about not only understanding the exposure of specific files and whether they're available publicly or available externally or shared with specific people that might exist in a domain that you don't want to be sharing files with, but it's also about understanding what content exists within those files. You want to make sure that your most sensitive information is not getting shared any more broadly than it absolutely has to. And again, we see a prime example here on the screen of how you can set up automated remediations that span multiple different SaaS applications and allow you to orchestrate this type of remediation across a whole host of different applications customized to what your policies or what your process needs to be. The last example that I'll go over for BetterCloud Secure is talking about least privileged access. This boils down into a few different use cases. One is certainly making sure that people have access only to the things they need within each SaaS app. So making sure that things like an admin isn't necessarily added to your SaaS applications without going through the proper approvals. But the example that I want to highlight on this screen is that you could effectively create better rules or better roles within BetterCloud to make sure that your BetterCloud admin has the ability to automate whatever they need to. They're the admin. They have the access to do things like create and delete users, delete files and apps, change other users' members. Usually we recommend that there's multiple admins so that you have kind of a check and balance there. But you certainly don't want to give that same access rights and that same level of powerful automation and access at their fingertips to someone that's a tier 1 help desk person whose really sole responsibility is to do things like change passwords and take care of lower level manual tasks. So make sure that your SaaSOps platform has the ability to properly segregate and make sure that you're enforcing the right level of access so that people have access to only what they absolutely need to do for their specific job and for the tasks that they need to accomplish. This is a prime example of what that looks like within BetterCloud. So you can see across all the different applications and what they have access to, and effectively showing that within the BetterCloud platform ensures that your help desk person only gets access to the things that they absolutely need to, but that your admin can still maintain the right level of access to take care of what they need to. So hopefully you've learned a lot. We just went through a ton of information. The SaaSOps movement and the framework was certainly something that could be new to a lot of you, and I encourage you to reach out if you'd like to learn more. These are 3 specific ways for you to start getting more in depth. You can watch some of the keynotes here the rest of this week and look out for some really exciting announcements, especially some brand new exciting product type of announcements here. You can also attend product sessions and workshops this week. Our product sessions are held by our product managers, and they'll be talking about the future vision of where we want to take our SaaSOps platform. And our Better workshops is being hosted by our expert advisory group. And it's a panel of people that have seen the best of the best in automation by providing white glove implementation services. They really know their stuff, and they'll get into the nitty-gritty with you there. Lastly, we've got some sessions where you can hear directly from other people like you, like other customers and prospects that are talking about how embracing SaaSOps has really changed the game for them and their IT services. So thank you so much for attending. Best of luck in the future of your SaaSOps journey, and we hope to see you at future Altitude sessions. Thank you so much.